Okay, now that we've talked about installation and prerequisites, let me show you how to install and configure MDM for AX 2012 R3. Before we get into this demo, it is important to make sure that you have at least the SQL Server 2012 MDS Enterprise Queue installed and have configured the data import-export framework. Let's launch the Start menu, and we're going to first open the SQL Server MDS Configuration Manager. Here we're going to first create a new database. To do this, I'm going to click on the Database tab and then click on Create Database. Then we're going to walk through this wizard. I'm going to click Next on the welcome screen and then connect to the local instance of SQL Server. You can click on Test Connection to make sure that the wizard is able to connect to the SQL Server instance. Then click Next. For the database name, we're going to say MDS. We're going to leave the SQL Server default collation on and then click Next. For the administrator account, we're going to use Contoso/administrator and hit Next. And then finally, on the summary, hit Next. And then the wizard starts creating the MDS database. The wizard has completed creating the MDS database. And so now we can hit Finish on this wizard. The next thing that we need to do is to create a web configuration. So hit the web configuration button, and then on the website, select Create a new website. For the website name, we're going to use MDS, and for the port, we're going to use port 8089. For the username, let's use Contoso/administrator and specify the password for this account and confirm the password. And hit OK. In the HTTP binding information, it says we're not using SSL. Let's hit OK. That's OK for this demo. And then we've created the website, and we now need to select the database to use with this website. So hit Select. And on the dialog that opens to connect to a database, hit Connect. And choose the MDS database that we created previously. And hit OK. Then hit Apply on the screen to apply your changes to the web configuration. Once the configuration is complete, you can hit OK on the dialog that opens to launch the web application in a browser. Next, click on Open the Master Data Manager homepage to launch the homepage for this particular application. From here, you can install the Master Data Services add-in for Microsoft Excel. Let's go ahead and do this. Let's download the 64-bit version and hit Run. Accept the terms of the license agreement and install. Once we are done, let's go back to the application, and now we need to set up some of the user permissions. So hit User and Group Permissions and add the contoso/admin user as a valid user to MDS. Then we're going to grant this user permissions to a certain set of functions. Hit the edit button. And then in the list of available functions, click the double arrow to add all of the available functions. And then hit save and continue. Then we can go back to the home page. In a production environment, it is better to assign model-specific permissions rather than provide broad permissions like we did just now. Now let's just set up AX to work with the MDS database. From the Start menu, I'm going to open the Microsoft Dynamics AX 2012 Management Shell. And then here we're going to use the PowerShell commandlet. Set AX Master Data Management MDS setup. The parameters to this are the server name. The server name is localhost. And then the MDS database, which is MDS. And then I'm going to press enter. And now the MDS database has been configured to work with AX. And we then need to make sure that we set up MDM within AX and configure it to work with the SQL MDS instance. So let's go into AX now. Before we configure MDM, let's just make sure again that the data import-export framework is set up and configured properly. So open the data import-export framework parameters and hit validate. Make sure that the validation status is green, and then hit close. Then we need to make sure that the account used by the data import-export framework has permissions to the MDS database. To do this, let's launch SQL Server Management Studio. Connect to the database engine. Go into databases. Open MDS. Click on Security, Users, Contoso Admin. Then click on Membership and make sure you select the MDS exec and AXMDM_exec roles, and then press OK. Normally, we would also have enabled change tracking on AX and MDS databases, but since change tracking has already been configured on these databases, we can skip this step. Finally, the last step to complete the installation is to configure MDM within AX. So let's go back into AX and configure the MDS connection. We are now in the Data Import-Export Framework module. And there under Master Data Management, you have an option to configure the SQL Server Master Data Services connection. Let's set up the server. The server is localhost. And then the database is MDS. And then for the endpoint, we're going to type the endpoint. It is http://AX2012R2A:8089/service/service.svc. then hit test config, and you get an info log that says the connection was successful. We just looked at configuring MDM within AX 2012 R3. With that, we've come to the end of the module, and let's take a look at the module review.